Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, there have been a lot of questions about the Republicans' ability to maintain control of the House after 2024. And we saw Republicans narrowly retake the House last year. It was by less than expected, but it still ended up being the silver lining in an otherwise underwhelming night for Republicans where they did not retake the Senate. They lost some governorships, and it was not the night a lot of Republicans wanted to happen. However, it seems like, okay, they'll have the House for at least these 2 years. Now what's going to happen? Lots of people are saying because you have these lawsuits and the Supreme Court rulings in these deep South states like Alabama that Republicans are going to be at risk of losing more and more seats, because what they're trying to do here is they're trying to give extra districts out of nowhere to the Democrats under the guise of affirmative action. This is the same Supreme Court that went on a roll and said that affirmative action at universities, that has to be outlawed. But for some reason, you have to draw certain congressional districts to benefit certain groups of people. When does the line exactly get drawn? Do non-college educated white voters get affirmative action congressional districts? What about white voters as a whole in states where they are a minority, such as New Mexico, where they're not even a plurality, or a state like Nevada, California, Texas? Do they get automatic white districts per the VRA? Because if you apply it fairly, and if that's a constitutional clause, that's how it would be interpreted. However, it's not. So states like Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, they're going to try to mandate that there will be an extra district that's going to be majority minority district, just so Democrats are going to have the ability to pick off that seat, because that's really all that it's about. If this is something that's such an issue to people, where everything has to be, lines drawn on race, well, then they could move to a different congressional district or whatever, but it's really not. What it all comes down to is the Supreme Court just not doing its job, and one or two justices that have been solid over the past month. A few months ago, they were on their rotating carousel of cucking and caving, and that's exactly what they did. They cucked and caved, and it's disappointing. But Alabama Republicans are saying, no, we're not going to listen to you. You guys made a mistake, and we are not going to draw an extra district. So maybe this could lead to an additional lawsuit. Maybe the original case could get thrown out. And this all comes after they sent back the Ohio redistricting case to the Ohio Supreme Court. So Ohio is going to be able to redraw their map more Republican favorable. The Supreme Court there has gotten more Republican favorable after the midterms. And on top of that, you go to North Carolina and their results in the midterms. You look at some of their court races, incumbent Democrats losing, other Democrats retiring, being replaced by Republican justices on that state Supreme Court. So what that does is it allows Republicans to go out there and redraw a map that's going to be a lot more favorable, because they're basically giving seats to the Democrats in a state that they don't exactly have favorable geography in. I mean, there's a reason why Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, they don't have any Republican states. And yes, some of it is because of the fact that the Democrats there are gerrymandering, and that's true, but it also does have to do with geography. North Carolina Democrats have terrible geography. Wisconsin, they're probably going to try to redraw another Democrat seat there where Republicans have favorable geography. They're going to be the ones going out there. They're trying to do affirmative action as much as possible across their electoral map. And will it exactly work? I don't know. I don't believe that it's a guarantee that Republicans are going to end up losing seats across the South. But at the same time, let's assume that they do for the sake of the argument, because this video is about the chances that Republicans will have the ability to hold the House or not. So let's say that Democrats get a few bonus districts, maybe because of the court election in Wisconsin. They gain another seat there by default, and then you give them a seat in Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Alabama. So what that would do is it would essentially make the House even. Maybe you can say Republicans will gain a seat or two in Ohio, a seat or two in North Carolina, and Democrats will maybe redraw New York with a slight Hochulmander and see what happens there. Okay, well, from there, Republicans will probably be at like a 1 to 2 seat deficit, or the House is basically up for grabs. And it really comes down to a lot of these key individual House races, because obviously across the map you're going to see minimal redistricting here and there. Some will favor the Democrats, probably not by enough to give them the House outright, and some will favor Republicans, but not by enough to make sure that they get completely saved in terms of the House. So it really comes down to a lot of different things. It's also important to note that in a presidential election, you will have different groups of people turning out at different rates. This is true. Non-college educated white voters not turning out very high in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, even in Wisconsin, and parts of other states in the region like Illinois. So if they're able to turn out at higher rates in 2024, assuming Donald Trump is on the ballot, whether he wins or loses, it's going to be extremely close, and these states are going to be extremely close. And what that's going to allow for is Republicans to pick off several seats, maybe like Pennsylvania's 17th, a seat or two in Ohio, a seat or two in Michigan, especially if Alyssa Slotkin is going to be running for Senate. If she's going to be the nominee there, then that district is completely up for grabs, and Republicans will have the ability to likely take it because that's a district there that very well could end up voting for Trump at the end of the day. Those down ballot effects do help. Donald Trump is somebody down ballot in a lot of these places that is a boost to Republicans, even if they outperform him. Look at 2016, Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania, Ron Johnson in Wisconsin. Yeah, technically they won the states by more than Trump won them by, but Trump did energize a lot of turnout that did boost them in areas that were able to go out there and save them that they ordinarily would not have gotten if somebody else was at the top of the ticket. So you look at that effect in full display. There's also a few other districts where Republicans just completely drop the ball in. Maybe they could pick up some steam and carry those districts in 2024, like Colorado's 8th district. Third party kind of screwed Republicans out of that one. On top of that, Washington's 3rd district, again, low white working class turnout there comparatively to other places, and Kent taking his victory for granted, having an extremely divisive primary. Those are not exactly going to be major problems next time around, and what that is going to lead to is the ability for Republicans to go out there and flip a couple of seats. Yes, they're going to be on defense in some places. We know that. Depends what happens with the 3rd district in Wisconsin regarding redistricting, what's going to happen in New York. It's not exactly a sure thing. We know that. But at the end of the day, the House is still going to likely end up being on a knife's edge. It's going to come down to likely whoever wins the presidential election. I don't really think you're going to see a whole big split. I mean, there's a chance, yes, Trump wins with a slight Democrat majority, or maybe Biden could have a very narrow victory with a slight Republican majority, and the Senate is likely going to go into Republican hands regardless, because you have West Virginia, Montana, Ohio. Republicans just need to flip 2 out of those 3. They basically are guaranteed West Virginia at this point. They need either Montana or Ohio. I think they get both of them, and then there's some other races they potentially could end up picking up. You have a 3-way race that's going to be taking place down in Arizona. You have competitive races in places like Wisconsin. You have your star candidate in Virginia, even though that does kind of tend to seem to be a little bit of a long shot. But when it comes to states like Texas and Florida, Republicans are likely going to hold them. The Democrat candidate in Texas is overrated, for one. And for 2, they don't really have anybody in Florida, and the Democrat Party of Florida is in complete and total shambles right now. And there's a chance they might lose another congressional seat there, depending on how those trends really continue. You had a couple of kind of close races where they're fielding solid candidates. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but we'll have to see what happens there at the end of the day. Also, Alaska, are we finally going to be able to do something about Mary Peltola? She's voted like a party line Democrat in a state that Donald Trump won by 10 points or more twice. So A lot of questions there. The 2nd District in Maine, that's another seat that could flip, especially in a presidential year with Trump at the top of the ticket. I know Jared Golden actually has a more moderate voting record compared to a lot of these other fake moderate Democrats, but still, he still votes with Biden like, 60, 70% of the time or so. So at the end of the day, it's possible that if you run an actual candidate, you could flip that district. So like I said, it's too early to tell. These lawsuits are disappointing, but if Republicans are able to overturn them in places like Alabama, I think they're going to have a much higher chance at holding the House. We'll just have to see what happens between now and these next few months or so. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.